Hello, Year 4. I'm going to read Chapter 5 of Beowulf, the book we've been looking at. Okay. There was no victory feast that night. We were too exhausted, and the memory of the previous night's premature celebration was still fresh. Beowulf declared that the Geats would stay a full month to ensure that no further evils threatened the peace of Heorot. To while away the days, Hrothgar announced that games and sports would be held in Beowulf's honour. The hero himself declined to enter, to the relief of many of the warriors, and Scaife unsurprisingly proved himself a master with the sling and throwing dagger. I redeemed the honour of the house by beating the Geats in the horse race. Lastly, a great drinking contest was arranged between the Danes and the Geats, 3 from each band. 2 hours later, 5 men snored loudly under the table, while a triumphant Unferth chatted away like he enjoyed nothing more than a sociable ale with friends. At last the time came for the Geats to depart, and a feast was arranged unlike any the hall had ever seen. Heorot was awash with banners and decorations and tributes, and the cooks worked twice as hard as the last time to ensure everything was roasted and baked and broiled in time. All the warriors scrubbed and polished their best tunics and armour, and the women folk sewed trim and lace onto their finest robes. The evening progressed much as the feast had. The Danes took their seats and thundered their applause as Beowulf and his comrades entered the room. As they strode through the hall, Beowulf seized an embarrassed Unferth and raised his arm aloft so he could take his share of the applause. As Beowulf neared Hrothgar's seat, the old lord smiled and stood. The hall quieted. On this occasion, there is no need for me to leave my seat, Beowulf. You have your own. With a flourish, Hrothgar removed a cloth from the seat next to his own to reveal a chair carved with elaborate scrollwork. This chair, proclaimed Hrothgar, carries in its frame the tale of your struggle against Grendel and his foul mother. Each panel details part of that battle, so that long after we have gone, people can read the etchings and marvel at the deeds of the great Beowulf. The Danes roared their approval and roared once more when the doors opened and the queen entered with her ladies. 4 of the ladies glided forward and laid down a parcel on the table in front of Beowulf. The queen drew back the ties on the parcel and opened the wraps. All eyes strained to see what it contained, and there was a gasp as Beowulf held up his gift. It was a coat of mail such as none had seen before. The coat was a series of fine links of hardened iron with discs of beaten bronze laid over the resulting mesh. The mesh itself was sewn onto a soft leather tunic of great strength and suppleness. It was a gift without peer and beyond value. Beowulf thanked the queen courteously and sincerely. She bowed gracefully to him and to Lord Hrothgar and swept from the room. When the commotion over the armour died down, Beowulf spoke quietly with Hrothgar, and the old lord nodded vigorously. The Geat turned to face the assembled Danes. Not all the heroes in these events were from among my people, he stated, looking coolly around the room. Some among you put aside your fatigue and fear and joined us in our fight. At this he turned to his comrades, and they held out Unferth's mighty obsidian sword. This blade was a gift from a Dane of outstanding courage, boomed Beowulf, holding aloft the deadly featherlight sword. Unferth, Unferth, shouted the Danes. Beowulf motioned them to be quiet. The sword belongs with your people, and I would return it to a Dane of outstanding courage. Unferth, Unferth, the shouts came again, doubled in volume. Hands clapped Unferth on the back and urged him forward, but the old warrior stayed in his seat. Beowulf smiled at Unferth and nodded. Unferth is a hero, but he is a hero in his twilight years, and he would not thank me for putting on him any responsibility for protecting his people. Unferth nodded back his assent and drank down his beer with a scowl. But there is another among you who has shown his courage, leadership, and fortitude in these trying times. Beowulf paused and held out the sword towards me. I returned this sword to Wiglaf. I was aware of people pounding me on the back. I felt my face turn crimson with embarrassment as I was hoisted shoulder high by the Danes and marched through the room past all my comrades and their friends. I laughed at the absurdity of it all, but they banged their mugs on the table and chanted my name. Set down in front of Hrothgar, I stood, feeling awkward and confused as he addressed me. Beowulf is right, Wiglaf. You have become a symbol of courage and loyalty to our people. I didn't know where to look. And now, continued the Lord, Beowulf wants you to accompany him back to his home, so his people can meet his good friend and comrade, Wiglaf. I just stood there, stunned and stupid. What do you say, Wiglaf? Smiled Hrothgar, sensing my confusion. Do you accept this invitation? Yes, if my lord permits it, I stammered. Permit it, boomed Hrothgar. I insist you go, man. I will have these Geats know that we have too have our men of wit and bravery. The rest of the night passed in a haze, and the next day in a blur. I barely had time to say farewell to my friends before I found myself wading into the sea to board Beowulf's ship home. It was 5 years before I returned home. The old King Hygelac was delighted at Beowulf's return, for his health was failing and he wanted to see his kinsman before he died. I saw 2 kings of the Geats die, for Hygelac's son fell in sea battle against pirates from the Icelands the following year. The old man had no more offspring, and the kingship could have been passed on to any of a number of cousins and nephews. But there was one obvious choice among these more distant kinsmen, and the advisers and counsellors begged Beowulf to take the throne. Reluctantly he agreed, and there followed a period of peace and prosperity in the Geat lands. Beowulf was just and magnanimous to those who obeyed the law, but fierce in punishing those who abused his tolerance. He earned the enmity of many petty lords who liked to take advantage of their positions of power, but he earned the praise and love of the shackled folk he freed from their tyranny. I joined him on many of his forays into the country to bring order and justice to the land. Unferth's sword became something of a good luck totem for Beowulf's warriors and an object of fear for his warriors. Leaving my new home was a wrench, but word came that Hrothgar was fading, and his son, Eorling, had requested that I return and act as his adviser. The sword and I took to the water again, and I felt the same stir as I approached Heorot that I had felt all those years ago when I arrived as a youngster seeking work and shelter. Only this time I heard men whisper my name and saw them point as I strode up the great doors and entered the hall. I marched up to Hrothgar's great carved chair and bowed formally. The old man was slumped half asleep, but his son Eorling, no youngster himself, came forward to embrace me admiringly. Gently Eorling woke his father, and the old man's head rose from his chest. "Who is this?" he asked. "Some new hero come to my hall?" "It is Wiglaf, father," said Eorling, "come back to us from the land of the Geats." "Ah, Wiglaf," said the old man, a warm smile crossing his face. "Good, now the land is safe. It is time for me to go." And so he went, just like that. With his head on his chest, he fell asleep, never to wake again. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. We shall read chapter 6 on another day. See you soon.